Chapter 11, Telling Stories. Her mother's lips shrunk into a tight line of anger. How ridiculous! Of course he hurts you when he smacks you. That's not smacking, Nadine interrupted. That's hitting. He doesn't hit you, Nadine. He disciplines you. No, he hits us. Hits. Hard. With a pipe. I'm not talking about the times he cuffs us. I'm talking about when we have to go up to the shed. Nadine pulled at some of the clothes, her stomach aching with anger and fear. These built-up feelings she'd swallowed for the past few years. On me, he just does the legs, but the boys get it worse. You're exaggerating. This is just like that time you told us Mr. Mastery had made you give your lunch to another kid when you'd thrown it away. Nadine felt defensive. It's not like that. I was a kid then, Ma. I just said it because I didn't want you to. She knew she was digging herself into a deep pit. I made it up because I didn't want to get into trouble, because I was afraid that you would be angry with me. You do it all the time, Nadine. You have always made up little stories, told lies, got your brothers into trouble. It was cute when you were small, but it's not cute now, especially not now. Nadine understood now the significance of the story her mother had told her 2 years ago when she had been caught out in that big lie, the story of the boy who cried wolf. Her mum had said to her then, one day it's going to be very important that you are believed, but if you keep on lying like this, Nadine, you won't be believed, and there will be terrible trouble. Now she had to make her mother believe her. Forget about then. Answer this. Why do you think he only disciplines us in the shed then? Because it's the place. Marian's voice trailed off uncertainly. He says that proper discipline should be controlled. Have a punishment place. But whacked around the head can be anywhere? They're not that hard. How do you know? Nadine demanded. Marian stared at her hard. I do know, she said simply. Nadine understood. They didn't do it much anymore, but when they first moved out here, if Marian disagreed with Ted or raised her voice at him, he would clip her about the head or mouth to shut her up. Still, this was more than a cuff. Ma, he tells us that if we tell anyone what he does, then we'll get it even worse. Nadine, these stories of yours. It's not a story, Nadine cried. It's true. Why do you think Daniel and Martin never let you see them in the bath? Her mother snorted. Because they're growing up. They're embarrassed. No boy wants his mother to see him naked. That's not it, Nadine shot back. It's because they don't want you to see the bruises. Stop it, her mother yelled. Enough of your stories. This is not some soap opera or teen tragedy tale. I'm not making it up, Nadine cried. Listen, she added, all fired up. He's up to no good. He does illegal stuff. What other stuff? Marian asked, frowning. What are you talking about? He goes, Nadine continued, losing her confidence a bit. He goes dogfighting. What? They bet on them, on the dogs. Martin and Daniel told me. They're just making up stories to impress you. No, Mum, it's true. And they bet on the dogs. And the other day he lost lots of money, Daniel said. About $400. Her mother went pale and stared at her, eyes wide. Nadine's breath was coming rapidly. She had said too much. The boys would kill her. Slowly her mother shook her head. That's a wild story. I think it's terrible that you feel you have to make this up. I know you're still not used to the way Uncle Ted likes to run things. But to make up such awful lies, Nadine. It's not a lie. I'll prove it to you. Leave it. No, I'm going to get evidence, Nadine said. and with her heart beating, she ran out of the house toward her stepfather's truck. In there, Martin had told her he kept a record of the bets he's made, the dogs' names and owners. Somewhere in the truck was a little book which held all the evidence she needed to prove to her mother that Ted was not the wonderful man she believed him to be. She could hear the dogs down past the cattle sheds, and the call and shouts of her stepfather as he directed the dogs. There would be enough time to get into the truck and locate the little book. Nadine opened the driver's door and climbed in. Despite the distance between the truck and the location of Ted, she still closed the door quietly. The cab was large, with enough room to fit 4 small people or 3 large people in the front, and a space behind the seats, which was used for storage, usually boxes of nails, tools, a tent and sleeping bag, first aid kit. Attached to the back inside window was a gun rack, empty because the boys had taken the gun. First, she searched inside the glove box. There were maps and the manual for the truck, plus registration papers and bits of string and other rubbish. No little book. She then checked the side pockets of the doors, but there was nothing. With her bottom in the air, she looked under the seats again, but again there was no book. Maybe Mum was right. Maybe Martin was having her on a bit. A little seed of doubt nestled inside her chest. Maybe the whole thing was made up and there were no dog fights, no dead dogs, no burial ground, no betting. Maybe Warren was really going to use Hawkeye as a pig dog after all. She hesitated, unsure of herself now. Daniel had said Ted always kept the book in the truck. If it wasn't here, then maybe it didn't exist. The last place to look was behind the seats. Nadine was about to sit up and look over when she heard a whistle close by. Too close. It was Ted. She ducked down and scrambled onto the floor of the cab. She heard him crunch by, and a moment later the dogs trotted by as well. She would have to wait until he had gone down to the house before she could sneak out. Nadine waited, straining to hear the direction her stepfather had taken. Just when she thought the coast was clear, she heard a great thump on the back tray. He was still around, and she couldn't get out yet. It was very frustrating. Then she heard her mother's voice. Oh no, thought Nadine, here we go. Perhaps while they were talking, she could sneak out quietly. She crawled back onto the seat and lifted her head a little to look in the side mirror. Ted and Marion were standing at the back of the truck talking. If she opened the door quietly, she could probably just sneak out. But no sooner had she thought this than Ted came striding toward the driver's door. It was too late. Without another thought, Nadine yanked the tab of the middle seat and pulled it forward, enough for her to slip in behind the seats. She pulled the seat into position just as the driver's door was wrenched open. A moment later, the passenger's door opened too. It was her mother. They were arguing. All I'm asking, Ted, is to tell me what you did with the $500. I told you I needed some supplies. He took his wallet out of his jacket pocket. Look, he said, showing her the opening wallet. I still have $100 left. I didn't spend it all. The truck rocked slightly as he moved about the cab. Now I'm late. I'll see you later. He started up the truck and her mother closed the door. As he drove off, Nadine knew she was trapped and, with mounting panic, realized she was about to go to the ring, whether she liked it or not.